Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Game's going to be decided here. Harold spots up. Doesn't go. Putback is good! Roberto Canada with a second chance opportunity. Aris lead. Per Gunter for three. Got it. Per Gunter drei Punkte. Courage inside. For Gordon for the dunk. Ball game.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one 20 and Out. A while back, I used various channels to ask people their suggestions for guests to come onto the podcast. One of the names mentioned was Andy Thomson, so I reached out and was delighted that he agreed to join the pod. In this episode, we'll look back on his playing days and what he's been up to since he retired in 2020. There was a lot discussed, and that's good news for those of you who like the longer episodes. So, without further ado, let's get to it.
Andy, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on. I put out some feelers for potential guests to come on the podcast, and yours was one of the names that was mentioned. So I asked why, and one of the reasons was, well, what's he been up to since he retired? Because if I'm correct, you retired back in September 2020, so it was on the eve of a new season. Was that correct?
Yes. So it was the COVID cancelled that season in March. I think we played the last game was against the Giants. It was 50-50 if that game was going to happen. Because I think at the time they were cancelling all the Premiership games and stuff like that. And we had a big crisis meeting literally an hour before tip-off. If the game was going to go ahead or not. And we played the game and then that was it. That was the season over. And yeah, it was, I don't know, it was a weird time for everyone, really, wasn't it? And then by the end of the summer, to and fro, because I was looking at to retire that year anyway. And then I was just like, maybe I could do another year, not end on a bad note like that. And it got to September and negotiations were still going back and forwards. And then I was just like, I've got another opportunity here. I'll take that and hang up my boots and never look back, really.
Do you miss anything about the game? Are the people, the routines, or have you been able to, put that away now?
I've put that away. To be fair, when I first retired, I didn't, because it wasn't normal back then anyway. Either the whole world was kind of flipped upside down. So, in a sense, it kind of made it easier. And then obviously because it's not part of my life anymore, you just kind of cut it out of it and just crack on what's in front of you. And I was starting a brand new career and knew nothing about it. And I just jumped 2 feet in and before I knew it, I was like 6 months in and really enjoying it. And the basketball was, I'd watch it on occasion on a Friday because obviously it was streamed on YouTube and stuff like that. And I'd just keep track of the scores and that. But ultimately, I didn't miss it. I think it was the right time to go, and the right opportunity came up. And yeah, when those two things align, then you just got to do it.
What was your thinking behind it? I mean, was it like injuries? Was it your age, or you just felt I want to do this with my life now? What was your thinking?
I think you're losing a step. My minutes, don't get me wrong, my minutes at Leicester were always managed, and that was a conversation that we always had with Rob and that. They wanted to manage my minutes when I first signed because I picked up a calf injury when I was at the back end of my Newcastle season, and Rob had a plan of originally started me, and which was great. But it just wasn't really working for the team. And he came to me and said, do you fancy coming off the bench? And I was like, yeah, that's fine with me. It doesn't bother me if I'm starting or not. And I'd rather be finishing the game than starting the game. And we had that whole philosophy for a good 4 years. But then towards the end of the season, like my last year, I just couldn't recover quick enough, energy-wise. Injuries, I had a couple of calf injuries again in the middle stretch at Leicester. And yeah, it was more recovery. I just couldn't recover 2 games on the weekend and stuff like that, and obviously full on week of practice and stuff. And I wasn't willing to put the time in either. I used to go to the gym quite often, get up extra shots and stuff like that. And for the probably last year, I kind of coasted a little bit and got away with it. And it catches up with you. You know, you're 36 and guys are coming in at 18 and the gap's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when an opportunity comes along, you just go, okay, it's time to go. And yeah, so I left on good notes with everyone. So I'm happy I did it when I did it. And yeah, all good.
So it begs the question: what have you been up to since then? So, 2020, you retired. It's
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah. So it was strange because it was the time 2 years previous, well, 3 years previous to me retiring, I'd started my own business, an alternative therapy business, Chinese medicine,
Ah,
and I was treating a couple of clients and slowly building that up. And then I was just doing odd jobs for one of our sponsors, the land management company. So they had big estates that they looked after, and I'd just go and do maintenance stuff on them because obviously
yeah.
we practiced in the morning and our afternoons were to ourselves really. So to fill time and make a bit more money, I used to do that kind of stuff. So I had two kind of little businesses going, and then obviously COVID hit, and the little jobs could carry on because obviously I was outside doing stuff, but my therapy business I couldn't do anything at the time. Too many hurdles to jump through. So, and when I was thinking of, obviously, that was my exit plan and retirement to kind of like go into that. I couldn't do it. So I made a couple of phone calls um, and I got speaking to one of my sponsors, the club sponsors, and they started chat with them about going into construction, into the road and sewers industry.
Ah,
And yeah, so I went for a specific role to be like a ganger, basically, like lay pipes. And he offered me an engineering role instead. He said, just give it a go and what do you think? And there's no pressure. Obviously, see how you feel after 3 months, if it's something you'd be interested in. And we can go from there. And I've not looked back since, really. I've really enjoyed it. It's a fascinating career to go down, something that I knew nothing about before, and I've done all on the job training. And I'm a full time engineer now and running sites and yeah, big projects. So really enjoying it.
that's good to hear. I mean, it's not as if you needed to win anything else. I mean, you are obviously one of the most successful players in what
Hmm.
was BBL history. You
Yeah,
had, according to Dan Ratledge, had 20 titles you won
yeah,
over the years. And you seem to go to teams at the right times. Would it be fair to say? Because obviously,
yeah. A bit of a
you're
mercenary.
very,
Yeah,
you say that. I'm not saying that at all.
yeah.
um, let's just look back over your career. Where did you first get your start playing basketball? When did it first become a part of your life?
First started. This is going back when Manchester Giants were around. I used to play local league down at Reddish Vale, and there was a trial going for Manchester Giants under 16s at the time. And just on an off chance, I thought I'll give it a go because at the time I was playing rugby, school rugby, and then third team rugby at my local rugby club, and that was the sport that I grew up playing as I was a kid. Like we're a rugby family first most, so um, and I made the team somehow, and I was just like, okay, so I played that for a year and did really well. And then I gave it up and I was like, I'm just going to pursue this rugby thing. And Manchester, Trafford, then, because there was the Manchester Giants and then there was Trafford basketball, which was like Joe Forber and Graham Williamson.
Mm.
There was the two competing clubs. They approached me in the September of the following season. And I was still waiting to hear back from the Giants and not heard anything. And then I didn't play till the January. They kept calling me, so then I decided to go down to basketball, down to a practice, and then that was it. I didn't look back really. I had England trials, under-18 England trials in the February, March time. And then I was just on that whole pathway, really. And then that just kind of progressed from there to play Division 1, Division 3 and Division 1 for the Magic, who were affiliated with that club. And then I got a chance to go to the States. It was between going to the States or going to play low-level Spanish league that Sergio was looking at sorting me out with. And then that's kind of where my career started, really, basketball-wise.
You'll have to pronounce the name of the university you played for, because I can't.
So it's Catawba College. So it's a Division 2 school in North Carolina, Salisbury, North Carolina. And it's about 45 minutes north from Davidson College near Charlotte. And the reason I ended up there was because my good friend Harris Shawalambus was being scouted by Davidson's, and he needed to like organise a game for them to come over and see, because we were in the off season at the time. And he scheduled a game at South Trafford College, and I went down, and obviously the head coach was there and all that, and he saw me play, obviously saw Harris play, and went back and told my coach about me, and randomly got an email a couple of weeks later being offered a full scholarship to go play Division 2. So I was like, yeah, why not?
And what's the experience like for you?
Yeah, it was amazing. Different at the time because you're young, you're going to a foreign land. Luckily, obviously, it's the same. You speak the same language and that, but you're on the other side of the world, and yeah, just cultural is completely different. Bible Belt in the south. Yeah, it's just very different than out in the sticks, out in the country. So it was a very eclectic mix of people, and for a guy coming from England and stuff like that, it was a bit of a culture shock, but it was a good culture shock, and I loved it. The 3 years that I was there, really enjoyed it. We had success there. We won our conference and stuff like that, and went to the tournament 2 of my 3 years. So yeah, I had a really good experience there. Challenging, but yeah, really enjoyed it.
And then coming to the end of your time at college, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, okay, I'm going to try and make a career of this, or I'm going to try and find a job somewhere? What were you?
Obviously, you try and you think about playing professionally, but you never know if it could happen or not. So when you're coming towards the end of it, obviously you put this potential agents that you speak to and stuff like that, and then they promise you this, that, and the next, and you're like, okay, so there's a chance here. And nothing kind of materialised. So I spoke to Jeff Jones at Magic, who was obviously my coach before I left, and he said, "Yeah, come back here," because I had some of my qualifications from UK didn't transfer over, so it meant I'd have had to be a red shirt my first year at college, and I didn't want a red shirt, so there was a loophole of filing as a transfer student, but that meant that you took 2 of my 5 years away, so I'd only have 3 years of college. So I just went for the full basketball experience, and I didn't really study that well or kind of apply myself in that aspect. So I needed an extra year, or what I believed was an extra year back at UK university to get my degree. So I was like, okay, I'll come back and play for the Magic and do 1 year of studying, get my degree, and then see if I can do this professionally. And then kind of line that up with Manchester Met, which, because I was based in the city centre, but the course that I was going to do was out at Crewe, like Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah.
So it's like a good 45 minutes to an hour drive. And the original course that I signed up for, there was like, oh, you can't do that, but you can go on this course instead. It was like a sports development course. And then just before I was about to start, they were like, oh, you'll have to do 2 years instead of 1. And I was like, right, okay. So I started that out, and with the travelling and not really enjoying the course, I probably got to December, and I was just like, I've got all my student money. I can't be bothered with this. I'll just try this basketball thing. So put all my eggs in that basket and finished the year out and at Magic, and then went to Spain and kind of thought I'd try and be a professional basketball player, and it kind of worked out for 14 years. So I
Where did
did
you
all
go
right.
to in Spain?
I went to my first club was Gijón, Sporting Gijón. Obviously, like football and the basketball club were affiliated together. So I was there for a year playing for their feeder team in Eba. And then I signed the year after the south coast of Spain in Almeria. So I played down there for a year. And that's when James Jones tapped me up and got me back to the Mersey and played for Everton then.
What was your Spanish experience like? Obviously, you were going to the States, but they sort of speak the same language. What was it like
Yeah,
your time in Spain?
Spain, Spain, I loved it. I was on, because I had an agent then. I was just like, where do you want to go? And I was like, I'd like to be near the beach. And he found the perfect place. So it was on the beach. And it was the north of Spain, so it's not always the sunniest. And it was just like being in England, but you're on the beach. But then the basketball was great. People were really, really friendly. The food was really good. But that was my first like view into professional basketball and what was needed. Um, I found it like it was easy ever because I could just do what I needed, like whatever I wanted. The team was like focused around me, which was a bit bizarre because I was never really a scorer. But you can't like as the foreigner, you're kind of forced to be that focal person. So that was good in an aspect of development and being able to score and lead the team. But then I'd practice with the Leb Silver team. On like basically I'll be affiliated with the Leb Silver team, so I'll practice morning and evening with them, and then I go to my other teams practice like at 8 o'clock at night and practice with them. So I was practicing 3 times a day basically. And the practicing with that the first team was a lot tougher. Showed me how to be a proper professional, how to look after myself, and how to how consistent you need to be a professional, and you can't just pick and choose when you show up, kind of thing. So that was an amazing experience, and I really needed that. It really challenged me to grow as because you're still like when I came back from college, you're still like 20, 21, you're still young, and you're playing with men then. So and you're in a foreign country, don't speak the language, and you expect it to be your standards expected to be top level. So yeah, it made me grow up rather quickly. That did, but in a good way. And yeah, I didn't look back really.
And then after Spain, you're saying about James Jones and the Tigers?
Yeah, kind of left Spain. And James tapped me up because I was about to sign with a team in Cadiz, and then he called me and said, "Oh, Tony Garbaletto wouldn't mind having a look at you. Do you want to come down to a script like a workout?" So I was like, "Okay, yeah." So came down and had a workout, and then they offered me a deal. So I was just like, it was a little bit less than what I was getting at. I'm gonna get in Spain, but I was like, I've always wanted to play in the BBL and see what the crack was. So yeah, so I gave it a shot, and yeah, we had an interesting year. So obviously, I'd just signed, and that was when Gary Townsend was in charge of like the Everton Tigers, and then he decided to leave and go to Notts County for all that money. So there was big turmoil just before the season started. Obviously, the football club were back in the foundation, which was in charge of the basketball, and Gary Townsend had left. So then they were cutting all funding or partially cutting the funding because luckily we had Henry Moon, who was still involved with the club, and he was very highly thought of at Everton. So we kept the name, and then I think partial funding. So we all had to take a pay cut just on the eve of the season starting.
Was this the first or second year? Sorry.
This is my first year.
Right.
So yeah. So we had that issue. And yeah, we had a solid team, mid-table team really, who just never really had a chance to put it together. We had injuries or stuff was going on, or we were waiting for people to come in. We had like Kevin Bell at point guard, and then we were waiting on Trey Moore to have his visa approved, and that took a good 3 months. We had Olu Babalola. Who else did we have? Flo Larkai was there. James Jones. Who else? I'm trying to think that year now. Jeremy Jeremy Gums. He played at Plymouth the year after. We had like a solid team. Oh, Chris Haslam was there. He was on his last season. So it was just we kind of managed to get it all together. I think we finished 7th. I think we just squeaked in the playoffs, and we made a run at the end and got to the final and won the final. And that was my first BBL trophy, playoff final trophy. And yeah, that was it's a challenging season because obviously then you just go into the league that you've always kind of watched and grown up watching and playing in that. That was a great experience. And again, the standards that was set there kind of stood me in good stead, like moving forward and progressing from there. And then obviously the year after we changed from Everton to Mersey, and we put together an all British team, adding in obviously Tap and Nate Rankin with their passports and that. And yeah, we had a good tear at it that year and fell short of all 4, but it wasn't without drama, I'd say, anyway, with all the financial problems that we had that year as well. So it was interesting on the Mersey anyway.
Did the problems at the Tigers, was that part of the reason why you ended up at Newcastle in 2011?
Yeah, it was. It was just a big mess in the background, basically. Just we were living in above the Malmaison in private apartments. We had like cars and all that kind of stuff, and then they were playing out the arena, which was costing an absolute fortune each game. I think they were giving away tickets. I think they were just trying to. I don't know what the plan was, but it got to, I think it was October, and the first cup games, and we were the paychecks were stopping, like already start like late and stuff like that, and it was just grating on us. It got to the cup final, and we weren't. It was a tough one. Don't get me wrong, we can't blame anything that was happening in the background on that game. Like D'Agostino absolutely murdered us in that game. He just went off and had a career night, and we just didn't show up, and that kind of put a bit of a blip on that season. But with all the financial problems and stuff like that, I was looking to go anyway. I was close to signing with Newcastle in the February that year before the signing deadline was done. But Paul Blake thought it would be it looked very bad that I'd go from one rival to the next in mid-season with everything going on. So he stopped the deal from happening. So I'd have to wait till the summer to make that move. But that was the only team that I was entertaining on going to if I was going to move to another team in the BBL at the time.
And what was it like? Obviously, because you end up 2 spells at Newcastle. You went there for a year in 2011. What was that like for you, going from Tigers to Eagles?
Yeah, that was great. I love Newcastle. Just the city, the people, amazing. The basketball, the success that we had, and then playing for Fab. That was a great experience. Challenging, but it's just the way he is. But he got the best out of people, and that was probably one of the reasons why I went back there after coming back from France, was because it was so familiar and knew what I was coming back to. But yeah, Newcastle was the team that we had that first year, my first year there, where we did the clean sweep. That was a special kind of team, very close unit, and we managed to kind of dominate the league, really.
One of the things I love to talk about in this podcast is I love to talk about European basketball. And I know because I reached out to you when you were there. After
Mhm.
Newcastle, you went to La Rochelle for a couple of years. How did
Yes.
that experience come about, and what was it like for you?
So my agent contacted me after that clean sweep year and said that I've got a team in France, NM1, we're interested in you. So I was like, okay. But I hadn't heard from him. I was away at the time. I was in America for a friend's wedding, and somehow my agent got hold of Callum because I was away with Callum Jones and James
Uh,
Jones and all that. And I'm literally walking up to the Lincoln Monument, and Callum's like, "Your agent's on the phone." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Okay." So I'm like talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, I've got this team in La Rochelle, blah blah blah. They're really interested in you. They've offered this." I was like, "Right, okay." And at the time, I'd just started dating my wife now. She was down in London. I was up in Newcastle, and we were traveling and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, I think I could." I think I could see my future with her, and I was just like, "I don't want to go anywhere." And then they just kept throwing more money at me, so I was just like, "Okay." And then yeah, they offered me more money. Then they offered me extra flights for my wife, my partner to fly out and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, let's just give it a go and see how that. And that was just, I love France. I think if I'm lucky enough to have enough money and retire wealthy, I'd move back to France. Just the lifestyle and the people were really nice where we were um, on the coast. Lived on the beach. And the basketball was amazing, very challenging, very team orientated instead of having your stars that you have in the BBL. It was very team orientated and very balanced scoring around the team, and you'd have a solid 10 guys who could play and not really like
wow.
a front loaded like 6 or 7 and your 8, 9, 10s are kind of just dropped in here and there. Like you'd have 5 on, 5 off, and yeah, you'd have legit 10 guys who could play and challenge. And we did really well. Like, they just come up from NM2. They wanted to stay up, and their ambitions were just to stay up in that league. And they put a good team together with an American called Jared Cole, who actually was on the radar for quite a few other teams in the BBL before he went to France. And then, yeah, we had a good partnership, and ended up making the playoffs that year. Um, and then we kept the team together, and then added a couple more the year after, and made a push they wanted to get promoted, and we made a push for it, and we finished fourth. We beat the top team twice, and we got to the semi-finals of the playoff final to get promotion, and the owner got cold feet and said he couldn't afford to go up, and basically the coach sat the starters for the fourth quarter, and we lost, and we went out, and that
Did
was
not
my
know that.
only yeah, that was my only bitter bit about France, was because I think we would have got promoted as well. We'd have done really well and got promoted to Pro B. And literally, my agent came up because I had my agent, the UK based agent, and then he had his French affiliate agent who obviously worked for me, and he came to the game, and he explained it after the game what had happened. And yeah, players were none the wiser because during the season we had like crisis talks. We had like a 3-game losing streak at the beginning, and like we had a dressing down from the owner. Oh, it's not acceptable, blah blah blah. And then we went on the tear and made it to the semi-finals, and we were in the game against the number one team. And then we was just like, yeah, we can't go up, and we just kind of the coach had to sit the starters, and we just see out the game. And yeah, it was just a bit of a bitter one to take, really.
So you were in NM1, which was the third tier of
Yeah.
French basketball. And of course, back then, NM1 and Pro B was seen as way better than the BBL. That's where the BBL
Mhm.
was seen those days. So you're obviously almost like a step up, even though you're playing in the third tier in France.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because the ironic thing is, I mean, they are. I think they're called Stade Rochelet or something. And of
yeah,
course
yeah.
they're in Pro A
Yeah,
nowadays.
they kind of merged with the rugby club at the time. So the rugby club was making a push when I was there. They got promoted from the second division to the top division our second year. So we went to the playoff final um, down in Bordeaux and watched that and saw the big parade and stuff like that on the port and stuff. It's just an amazing city that loves sport and stuff like that. And football wasn't really big there, so it was rugby and basketball were really big. But yeah, they've had good backing and now they've promotion and now they're at the top. So yeah, it just wasn't meant to be when I was there, but.
It's always the way.
I look back on La Rochelle, fond memories and really good experience.
Had that situation not happened, then do you think you might
Mhm.
have stayed on then
I
for
think
a
so.
further?
Yeah, yeah. If we got promotion to Pro B, then you're shopping yourself around a little bit more than at different teams. Even if you were to stay in NM1, you could still make very good money. But obviously, you always want to challenge yourself and go to the next stage up, and it wasn't meant to be. And then there was other teams in France looking at me, and at the time, I'd proposed to my partner, and we were like, well, we could go back to the UK and go back to Newcastle or wherever, and have two salaries, and we could pay the wedding off with one, and kind of set ourselves up a little bit. So we decided to come back to the UK, and it was between Leicester and Newcastle at the time. And because I was moving back to the UK, I was like, I need somewhere to live, and Newcastle at the time were dragging their heels. I said I'm looking at coming back, and I was waiting for a contract to be offered, and nothing had been offered, and so I was like, all right, okay, let's go and entertain Leicester. So Rob and Russell invited me down to Leicester because I think they were just on the up at the time. I think they'd just won the playoff final against Eagles, and yeah, so they were kind of on the up at the time. So I came down to Leicester, and I knew nothing really about Leicester at all. And they showed me around, showed me what the whole club was about, what the plans were, and it opened my eyes to how nice Leicester is where we were. And Anthony Rowe took me out for dinner and that with his wife, and had a great time. And then I don't know if Newcastle got wind, but I got a contract sent through on the Monday. So I was like, okay, sweet, I'm going to Newcastle. So I signed back in Newcastle to play with my brother and see if we can do it again up there.
Did the way, obviously, you got the approach from Leicester, did that influence you later on when you did join them?
Yeah, because I knew what it was like down there, and yeah, they kind of put it in the shop window for me, and it looked like a great place. It just wasn't the right time for me at the moment. I had my heart set on going back to Newcastle, and that's what I wanted. And I kind of used Leicester a little bit to kind of get what I wanted. But them showing me around and showing me what the club and the new arena and stuff like what was going to happen, and that it was good to look at, and I knew that was always an option if I needed. And yeah, so after my 2 years at Newcastle, we had that first year where we won the sweep again, and then the second year was a challenge, and we still won, obviously, the cup that year. But you could see that Leicester were on the rise, and yeah, it wasn't really working at Newcastle at the time, and we kind of fell short that season at the back end, losing the league, and then obviously we went out early in the playoffs. I think it was a semi-final or quarter-finals or something. I think I was injured that in the playoffs anyway. I tore my calf, so I was out. So, but yeah, it was Newcastle was another great experience because for 2 years I got to play with my brother, and we won lots of things, and just yeah, I'd not seen my brother quite a while, and he'd been through things himself, health wise. So it was good for him to be back playing, and me be able to play alongside him. So that would always be a cherished moment.
And you mentioned about your brother being there. What was it like playing on the same team as your brother, Stuart?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like playing open gym, like in the summer. It was just fun and familiar to have him there. It's just we had so many great memories together. Like obviously, when you playing, like you kind of your evenings are all for yourself. So we'd go out together and come back in the early hours of the morning and then go to Hoops for Health and coach, and then we go to practice and stuff like that. And it was just one big fun experience. Really, there was no stress or anything like that. It was just good times that made good memories together. And then obviously you always want to win, and you just make those memories a bit better, don't you? So I was just fortunate that I got to do it for 2 years. And it was 2 good years at Newcastle in their history as well.
Yeah, and like you get to play alongside your brother, but you get to win silverware as well together.
Yeah, yeah. It was like my family was always on the road coming to our games. Always come up to Newcastle or any game close by. Back home in Manchester, they'd be there, and we'd always have a big following of fans and stuff like that at cup games and stuff like that. I'd always sell at least 30 tickets. They always have like a big section in the Newcastle section of my fans and stuff like that. And it was just a really good time. Like obviously you always want your brother to do well and stuff like that. And every time that I got on the court with him, I'd always try and find him if I could within the flow of the game kind of thing. So and he did well. He could have played a little bit more and stuff like that, but his role and position was what he had to do, and his time were limited at times. But then when he came in, he did a job, and he did all right. It's a shame he couldn't play a little bit more, but that's what it is.
So you have a couple of, I would call, pretty successful seasons. You had, obviously, scoring wise, you had one of your best years. Obviously, you've always been a good rebounder throughout your time in the BBL. And then in 2016, you made what would be your last move to Leicester.
Yeah.
And what was the experience? Because obviously, you've played for Tony Garbaletto, you've played for Fab, and now you're playing for Rob. They're three coaches, in my opinion, very different styles. Would that be fair?
Yeah, styles, but then they all intertwine because kind of Tony was Rob's mentor, and then obviously Fab coach played under Tony, so then has his kind of takes from Tony as well. So it all stems from Tony and how he kind of sees the game and prepares for the game and stuff like that. And they're both very similar in that aspect. It's like there's no stone unturned, and they're very detailed when it comes to scouting and what they expect of you. And just three great coaches to play for. And luckily that I got to play for probably three of the best, barring Kevin Cadle, who obviously the trophy is named after, and then obviously you got Nick Nurse, who's coached in the league, and Chris Finch. So apart from those other three, I've played for three of the best coaches, I think, in BBL history. So I've been very fortunate in that sense.
And then before I get on the topic of Europe, because obviously you had a little spell with the Riders in Europe, again, you've gone from successful times at Newcastle into successful times at Leicester, because this is when they're really in their prime, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess I'm just not saying that the ship was sinking at Newcastle, because it wasn't. They still won something the year after I'd left, but it was just the right time for me on a personal level to go, get a new challenge, and Leicester came with an offer that I was like, okay, it's serious. I'd like a new challenge. Things weren't happening at Newcastle that I thought they would, and then it just worked out. Like, we assembled a really good team that year, my first year at Leicester. It was Drew Sullivan's last year. and I played with Drew at Mersey.
Uh-huh.
And then obviously Taylor King joined us. There's Tyler Bernardini, Connor Washington. Trying to think now. And then we had a couple of, obviously Leicester always brought in rookie Americans, so they like to pad that out. So it was just, yeah, we had a really good balanced team, and we had Pierre Hampton as well, who had been in the league before and was a handful, 3-4, and yeah. But it wasn't all plain sailing that first year. We had crisis talks going into December time. We lost against London Lions, who were the big rivals at the time. We lost to them in the cup. I think it was the semi-final, and we weren't doing too well in the league. And we had a game down in Plymouth. Basically, it was we have to win, or things are going to be changing. And that was it. We just went on a tear after that, and kind of didn't look back. Went on a tear in the league, and then picked up the trophy and won the league, and then we had the playoffs, and yeah, we saw off Newcastle in the final of the playoffs. So that was it was kind of solidified my I'd made the right move, and I'd gone to the right place.
I think it was the quarter final, the cup that year, but obviously, the
Yeah,
treble. You finished the first
yeah,
year there with treble.
yeah,
Obviously, again, you're going to win a lot more success. But what I'd love to talk to you about with your time at Leicester was, even though you guys didn't win a game, you'd played in Europe. Obviously, you've been in Spain, you've been in France,
yeah,
but you had a chance to play in European club competition that in the 2018-19 season. So you obviously went into
yeah.
the BTL qualifiers. You played Back and
Okay.
Bears, and then
Yeah.
obviously dropped into FIBA Europe Cup. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
even though the Riders didn't win a game, what was it like? Because obviously BBL teams back then weren't really entering Europe. What was
No,
it like for you?
that was an amazing experience, but we just weren't equipped for it. We didn't have the strength and depth, and that's what ultimately killed us. And I think the eve of like going in, playing Back and Bears, Pierre Hampton goes and rolls his ankle, nearly breaks his ankle, and it's just like it was just chaos. It was just like we had a small team as it was, and it's not like Rob or Russell's fault. It's just like budgets. Like we don't have the budget that these of the European teams. So we're already low on manpower as it is, and then you're starting three who kind of bust his ass and got in really good shape that year to kind of really excel in Europe Cup. Goes and rolls his ankle like literally on the last play of practice, and you're just like, okay, now we're going in against Sassari and first home game, and it's just you're playing against guys who are making millions of pounds. You're just like, mate, I'm on like your day rate is my yearly salary kind of thing. So that was just an experience, an amazing experience. The style of basketball, kind of, I think the British basketball way, kind of, it makes up for a lot of things because we play fast, we play quick, and we don't hang about. Whereas they like a lot of very slow, very structured, and they're trying to find the right shot. As whereas we are playing within a system, but we're undersized at every position really. So we just have to use our attributes, which is our quickness, and try and run guys off the floor and kind of make them feel uncomfortable. And we're in a lot of games that we should have won. And had we had that depth on the bench and not changing personnel during it, which is it's not the club's fault. Guys coming in injured already and stuff like that, and having to send them back in and bringing someone else in who's not in the position that we need and stuff like that. It's just a nightmare, like scenario that happened to us, which didn't really kind of give us the best chance that I felt we deserved, really. And yeah, but it looks like we forged that way, and we found what the problem was, like lack of depth and stuff like that. And you need a legit squad of players who can challenge on the domestic front as well as on the European front, because those trips are long. Like, you travel on the Tuesday, then you're playing on the Wednesday, and then you're traveling back on Thursday, and you might be flying straight into. I remember traveling back from Hungary, and we flew straight into Newcastle, and then we played Newcastle, and then we were on the Sunday, and then it was just an absolute bizarre 2 months of so many games. You don't know where you stay in. But it was an amazing experience, but I just wish we could have won at least one. We were in a couple of games where it came down to the last couple of plays, and we just didn't get a score when we needed to, and they'd hit big shots, and it's one of those things.
I think a couple of games against one of the Hungary teams, I can't remember which one. You were really close. Like it was like one basket difference, sort of. Well,
yeah.
But
we had a shot at the end of the clock. We had a
Yeah.
shot at the end of the game. I had a shot in the corner, and they kind of knew the play. They switched out, and I had nowhere to go, and I had to shoot it because there was zero time, and I got blocked, and then that was it. It was just like, but we ran them close. It was Solnoki, that was it. We ran them close at their place. Basically, they got booed off the court at their place. I think that was that was like a 3-point game, and then we ran them close again at home, and we came up short, and it was just it was a great experience. But you always want to have at least one victory at least on your resume in Europe, but it wasn't meant to be.
And then let's just bring it to a close. And I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it's all right.
Who was your favourite opponent when you were playing? Who did you really love going into battle against each night? You sort of relish those battles on the court. It could be in the BBL. It could even be when you're in college or in Spain. Or
what one player or team or
your choice. You can choose a team, or you can choose an opponent as such.
There's probably not one opponent. It's more the team. I think in my heyday, when I was at Mersey, it was playing against Newcastle. When I was at Newcastle, it was playing against Leicester. And then when I was at Leicester, it was playing against Newcastle and then London at times. But I think the Newcastle Leicester, when I was at Newcastle and Leicester, and they were on the rise, and we were still the they thought they've caught up with us, but we did the clean sweep that year. And I remember we went down to Leicester, their place, and I think we only had like 6 guys, and we still turned them over. They thought they were going to run us off the floor, and we killed them. Those were the good rivalries. Those are always the games that you like to play in. And that's what I miss, is those really competitive games where it was on a knife edge, really, because any team could blow each other out at a moment's notice. So those were probably they were the best. But I look back on fond memories, and I've got them on DVD, and my daughter asked me about what I used to do and stuff like that, and she's been to watch me play in Masters basketball. I played in Italy last year, so she flew out and watched me play, which was something that I'd always wanted, my kids to see me play. So she got to do that, so that was good.
Was that one of those things where you're glad you could play again for a little bit, but you're glad you retired as well?
Yeah, by the end of it, it was so many. It was like 6 games in 10 days, and like you're 40 years old, and you're just running on empty, So, but it was an amazing experience. We got silver medal. We'd lost to Italy in the final by 8, and a lot of those guys are still playing like Division 3 Italy, like professionally in good shape, and he came up short a little bit, but that's my new kind of thing to scratch the basketball itch is the Masters stuff that I'm doing with the GB Wolfpack. So we've got a good team, and we get together once a month, and that's what I do now.
Looking back on your career, if you could pick out one game or one moment or one trophy that you really cherish,
probably my first one, my first BBL trophy for Everton. Probably my favourite, because I don't know, like the longer you do it, and obviously I've been very fortunate the teams I've been at, the enjoyment. Don't get me wrong, I love the job, but the enjoyment kind of comes away from it, and it's more pressure of like, well, you expected to do this, and especially at Newcastle, it was just like when I did the clean sweep the first time, it was just like that was amazing. But the second time, there was so much pressure that Newcastle bounced back and were forced to reckon with. It was just like that's when it was just like it's just a job, and you're just ticking off the next thing. It's just like, okay, we've got that trophy. We'll celebrate for that night, and then that's it. There's no lasting ceremony. It's straight into it again, but yeah, probably my first one, because that's when it was like the most fun for me. There's no pressure, you're just having fun, and you go out there and no expectations. We were the seventh seed, and we got all the way to the final and got the trophy. So yeah, probably the first one.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, what a successful career. I mean, you finished with 20 trophies. Drew Sullivan also finished with 20. You had Charles Smith had 21 during his time. Alan Cunningham, 21. Fab, 25. Darius, 27 and counting.
Yeah.
And it's, you're in great company. Apart from, obviously, Cunningham, you've played with all those guys.
Yeah. I've been fortunate. I've been on some very good teams, and just kind of moved at the right time. So yeah, a bit of a mercenary, but it's been an amazing journey, and basketball's been what I was, and now I'm something else, and kind of I might pick it back up coaching or something like that when my kids are a little bit older. But apart from that, it's something that I'll check on my phone once in a while, and because all my area are now out of it, apart from Darius, really. So there's no one really to watch. So it's a young man's game now. So
go on. If I can, I'll ask one more question. Does it amaze you that Darius is still going?
No, I don't know. No, like he's just solid, isn't he? I think he's gone that pace his whole career. He's never been faster. He's never been slower, and for some reason, he's just steady for them, isn't he? He's just still steady as knows how to play, and he's at home, isn't he? So you just milk that as long as you can.
Right. Well, on that note, we'll leave it there. Listen, I really appreciate your time today, Andy. It's been great to look back in your career and obviously what you're up to now. And I wish you all the best for the future. Yep. And like I said, thank you so much for coming on today.
No, thanks. No, thanks for having me.
And finally, if you're enjoying what we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, or even share the pod on your social media. Every little bit of support helps. Until next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a hoops and hockey production.